Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And this is going to be part number 2 of stripping the frame of old Rusty, and then we go into shot blast it, so stay tuned. So in the previous episode we took the drive shaft in the back out, but now we need to take this part out. This is the part that typically connects to your gearbox or to a flex ring, which is typically here. And also here we have a split pin. Since that is not going to work, I might as well put a little socket in between. And that way I can grab it. Alright, so let's pull it off. This way it works very easy. Otherwise you need to hammer it up. So now I should be able to take all this out as soon as I've undone these couple of bolts. And look at that, years and years of grease. The bolt must be sitting here. Look at this pile here of grease. Okay. All right, so now I need to see how we gonna get this out. I mean, talking about a greasy job, right? This is really a greasy job. Very smoothly. I think it's almost out. Yeah. These are all the parts that came off the front joint of the drive shaft. So this part going to the gearbox, and then we had all these bearings. Now you can see how much grease we have on this. It's loaded with grease, but inside we have a bearing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back together more or less on how it was, because otherwise I won't remember it. And hopefully that goes on smoothly. I'm not sure if it will, but I suspect it will. Let's see if we can knock that in. Okay. And then we had this part. This part. I'm just going to keep it all together, because otherwise I will not remember it if I leave it all apart. And the best method to restore something is to do it little bit by little bit, or piece by piece. So my methodology is to do functional parts by functional parts. So instead of taking everything apart and throwing it in a big box, I do piece by piece, and when I disassemble something, I reassemble it, and then it makes it easier, to work it. Otherwise, you forget. Especially that there's very little documentation on this type of a truck, or at least not what I have. Okay, so this can now go on the site and to be rebuilt later. Alright, so now it's time to disconnect the shaft from the diff in the back, and again we have these metal plaques that are holding or locking or securing the nuts, so I need to lift all these up. So those little lips, they secure the bolts or the nuts of the bolts. So the main drive shaft still looks okay, even the joint, and I'm just going to put it together. Next step are the brake pipes, and I like to keep them intact as much as I can with all the proper bands, because that way I can build the new ones if I have to create new ones. Although the original ones, they look not too bad on this truck. Well, we'll see. All right. So now let's see if we can get this guy off. So this is the piece I really want to keep. The hose is a different story, but this coupling piece I really want to keep. I need to remove all the nuts and all these little brackets. It's both holding the electrical cabling, which we need to redo entirely anyway, and the brake pipe. Those little screws I don't need. I will use new ones. But certainly the brackets I will keep. Or maybe I put new ones up, I don't know yet. So let's see if we can release this. This might be a little bit more tricky, but who knows. I don't know if you noticed it already on this truck, but there is no shock absorbers on it. Pretty strange. All right. That's why I expected that it would turn the pipe with it. Well, we got one going. This connection is a brake pipe, which is going to the right front wheel. And this one is going to the left front wheel. This one is going to the back. So this is the entire pipe going to the back. So I'm going to keep that aside. If we need to make a new one, this is the perfect model then. What we got here is the brake switch. So this was connected to the brake pedal, and each time you brake, it makes a contact in here. Now, I'm not sure if this still works or not, but certainly I might replace that with a more modern version of a pressure switch. I don't know yet. If this is working, I keep it original. If it's not, yeah, then we make a modern solution to that. Now the cables, well, they will all have to be replaced anyway, so I don't worry too much about that. That's all trash can. I removed the front left brake pipe, so now I need to remove this attachment here, which is going through the frame. So hopefully this comes loose easily. All right. So this is the part that comes through the chassis where the brakes connect. So I really want to keep that. And this is the last brake pipe, which is going to the right-hand front wheel. And these are, well, put in place with screws. So hopefully I can get those loose, because sometimes these are very tight. Yeah, this is going to be an issue. Although I think we have a nut in the back. And with a little bit of luck, I can get to it. I'm now going to release that front right brake pipe, and then I can remove the feeder through the frame. All right, that's done. That should come off easy. I'm not going to use those in the future. I'm going to use proper connectors. This was stuff how they used to do it in the old days, but I don't think I will do it. Now, I know the purists probably would like to keep that, Yeah, I'm not that much of a purist. I like the things to be properly working, and yeah. Well, maybe this is okay. I don't know. There's a couple of these that I need to remove. There's also a support block for the engine, or a silent block as we call it, that also needs to be removed, and then I can remove the rear axle. I don't know if you have noticed it, but this rear axle has no shock absorbers, and it's the same in the front. This truck has no shock absorbers. Interesting. And then we have a bump stop, which is sitting here. I mean, look at that distance. I don't think that has any purpose. I mean, I can hardly believe that you would have these springs that far bending down that you would hit this. But anyway, I'm going to remove them and place them back afterwards. I only have one like these, so I'm not sure where I can get a second one. So if you guys know where you can get these big silent blocks, let me know, because I'm going to need it. So I'm going to remove now the rear axle, and to do so I'm going to release the springs from the frame at 4 different points. So there's 2 points in the back, left and right, and a little bit further down underneath the truck. So let's see how that goes. And again, that shouldn't be all that hard. Okay, so this is the last part we need to undo. You can see all the grease that we have on here. All right, so that is out. And here is that pin. In principle, the rear axle is now completely free, and I should be able to get it from underneath. Okay. So I've got the rear axle together with the springs and the wheels from underneath the frame. So now the frame is completely free. It's actually naked, as I call it. So it's about ready to be shot blasted, but before I do so, I have to put a tent up around the frame, because I am not going to spray or blast inside the workshop because otherwise I get way too much dust in it. And I had that before, so not a good thing to do. Afterwards, we will handle the rear axle entirely by itself. So I'll do spring by spring, I'll do the axle, we do the brakes, we do the bearings, we do all that stuff completely separate. Because all this needs to be cleaned up as well and shot blasted to a certain extent. So yeah, that's going to take a little bit of extra time, but it is what it is. The next thing up on the frame is to remove all the gunk, because I cannot shot blast anything which has grease on it or a lot of gunk. That doesn't work with shot blasting. So once I remove the gunk and I'm going to scrape it off, then I will probably clean it with some high water pressure, and then we'll shot blast it after I put the tent up. But before I do anything like that, I need to fix this corner here. That's the area we need to weld in a piece of metal. This is the old panel that was there, and you can see it's been eaten away a little bit, but it still was fairly strong. But nevertheless, I decided to cut it out and then replace it with a new piece of thick steel. So I'm going to weld it in. Last night I installed the tent, and it's nothing more than an old party tent on which I'm just using the tubes, and then I placed some blue plastic cover on it, and that's it. You know, tie it down with some tie wraps, and that's it. So that will allow me now to shot blast without spoiling the entire barn, but it will also allow me to paint the frame, because I can't get this frame in my paint booth, it's too small. I cleaned the frame as much as I could with this little knife here by scraping off all the dirt and the grease. All this stuff came off the frame, and it's mainly all grease and dirt. Next is I'm going to clean the chassis with high water pressure. After that, I will spray some degreaser on it. I'm going to rinse it off again, and then finally I'm going to shot blast it. My next step is applying a degreaser, and then we're going to rinse it again, and then we'll see how it looks like. If necessary, we do one more time a degreaser. And for that, I'm using a straightforward undercoating gun. So we are now about half an hour to an hour later, and the degreaser starts to dry up. So it's time to actually get it off with the high pressure cleaner. So now it's time to shot blast the frame, and shot blasting takes a lot of pressure and a lot of volume of air. So I'm having a older compressor here with a worm wheel. It's something that I acquired some time ago, and I fixed it up, and now I can use it. So I'm going to blast at 7 bar, which is fairly high. and I will do this in combination with my ibex, and the product that I'm using, or the media, is called garnet. So let's crank it up and see what our pressure is. So this is sitting at about 7 bar. The other tool you're going to need is an air dryer, because without an air dryer you're going to have a lot of clogging going on with the media. So compressed air tends to create condensation inside the hoses, so make sure that you have an air dryer if you want to work trouble-free. So the blasting system that I'm using is an ibex, so the container is here, you fill it up with the media. You have your compressed air coming in. You also hook up water if you want, because this is a combination of dry blasting and wet blasting. I'm not going to wet blast this time. And then here we have a connection for the helmet. So if you work for a long time, you want to make sure that you don't breathe all this stuff. So you put a helmet on with some overpressure inside, and you'll see me using that very soon. All right, so the media, as I said, goes in here. So let's give it some media. And this is our garnet. You can see this is very fine stuff. It is a one-time use, so you cannot reuse it like aluminum oxide or some of the other products. If you used it once, then it's wasted. All right. Got to make sure that the lid is closed properly. And it's ready to blast. In the back you can regulate the pressure on the ibex itself, so that's the pressure you're going to use for blasting. The compressor is always at 7 bar in my case, so I need to regulate it right here. There's also a water separator just in case, and the air coming from the compressor through the dryer is coming in right here on the bottom. As you can see, another big thing. This connector right here is for the water, so I can have a combination of blasting material and water to reduce the amount of dust, but I'm not going to use this on Old Rusty. That's the blasting gun, the trigger, and then a safety, so you have to depress it with your thumb before you can pull the trigger. Nothing really special. There's an extra hose here. This is the water hose, but then I have to change the head. Right now it's a dry head, this is the nozzle, and you have different sizes, nothing much to it. And it's very light, it's aluminum. So I'm going to start blasting the frame now, and I'm going to show you a couple of shots, but not the whole thing, because this is going to take a long time, probably about a whole day. But anyhow, this is what I need to do. So now I'm about to start blasting the frame, and this is going to take me about a full day. So I'm not going to keep you guys watching hours in a row on how I'm blasting the frame. I'm going to show you a few spots, and that will be it. So I was planning to include in this video also the epoxy paint and then the black paint, but that's going to take too long in this video, so that will be for the next episode. So thank you for viewing, and I'll see you in my next episode when we're going to apply the epoxy paint and the black paint for the frame or the chassis. Bye bye.